So you just got done installing Linux on your computer, and everything is going great, except maybe there's some application that for whatever reason you can't run on Linux, and that does happen. Maybe it's a proprietary application you're required to use for work, maybe it's something for personal use. For me, it's a music program that I use to make the intro and outro music for this channel, and that needs to be run on Windows. It just doesn't work on Linux, unfortunately. Today we're taking a look at how to install a Windows virtual machine on Linux. Hey, what's up guys? I'm Jacob Kaufman, I'm on the street, and yeah, how to install a virtual machine on Linux. This is obviously not a Linux computer. This is right here, and it is currently running OpenSUSE 13.1, and I am absolutely loving OpenSUSE. It is very stable, a whole lot more stable than Linux Mint Debian Edition was that I had before. And yeah, I'm really liking KDE. It's just a really nice experience across the board. But like I said, sometimes there are programs that are only produced for Windows, and for the time being, we kind of need Windows for some things. That doesn't mean you have to dual boot, because I really hate dual booting. I hate having to close all my applications and restart my computer every time I want to switch between operating systems. So one of the best things you can do to make sure you can use all of your Windows applications while running Linux is installing a virtual machine. You will need one thing to do this, and that is a Windows disk. I've got one right up here. As you can see, Windows 8 Pro. You will need a legally purchased copy of Windows before you do this. You cannot just install Windows without having a Windows install disk. We are going to be using the free and open source virtual machine manager called VirtualBox, and it is made by Oracle. So yeah, let's jump right in. Alright, so here we are on the desktop, and the first thing we are going to do is open up VirtualBox. Now, I already have VirtualBox installed, but if you don't, then what you can do is go to virtualbox.org. And like I said, it's made by Oracle. Used to be made by Sun, but obviously Oracle bought them. So you go to the download section here, and VirtualBox is available for Windows, Mac, and Linux, and Solaris. I don't know what exactly Solaris is. I mean, I've heard of it. But yeah, you just download your respective package. Obviously for Linux, you're going to get it from a repository rather than actually downloading anything. At least that's the easiest way to do it. But if you're on Windows or Mac, you can actually follow these same steps. It should be relatively the same steps to install a virtual machine. So, once you've got it installed, let's just open it up, VirtualBox, and here we go, Oracle VM VirtualBox. As you can see, I've already got a virtual machine created here, and that is my Windows sandbox. However, if you'll notice, it's Windows XP. So in the past, anytime I needed to run anything on Windows, such as my music software that I talked about, or anything else that I just need to try something, or, you know, just run anything in a Windows environment, I would use this. I would use Windows XP. But, obviously, Windows XP end of support has come. I know this is a little late. Obviously, end of support happened like a couple months ago, but Windows XP is no longer supported, so I want a new virtual machine. So I'm going to install Windows 8, and then I'll upgrade it to 8.1 off camera. But the first thing you're going to do is click this new button up here. And this is pretty simple. I'm going to type Windows 8 Sandbox. As you can see, the type boxes automatically fill out based on what you type. So if I type like Red Hat, yeah, it would move to type Linux version Red Hat. But I'm going to type Windows 8 Sandbox. And we've got Microsoft Windows, Windows 8, 64-bit. If these are incorrect, you can go in and change them. This basically just affects the computer's recommendations for your VirtualBox settings. You can always change the individual settings later, regardless of what type and version you choose. It also affects the icon that shows up in your virtual machine list. So, how much memory do you want to give this thing? Windows is pretty hefty, so I'm going to give it 3 gigabytes of RAM. Now, this is in megabytes, so you can just Google how many megabytes is 3 gigabytes, and it will tell you how many megabytes is in 3 gigabytes. But, you know, 1024 megabytes per gigabyte, or at least that's what we, you know, assume. So you can also just take the slider and slide it up. And if you get into these orange areas or these red areas, that's giving it so much that it might make your computer run slow while the virtual machine is on. So I would recommend keeping the memory size in the green area. Next, hard drive. What we're going to do is create something called a virtual hard drive, and that will be, I mean, it's pretty simple. That will be just a virtual hard disk The virtual machine by default will not be able to access any of your computer's files, and your computer will not be able to access the virtual machine's files. The entire hard disk that the virtual machine is using will show up all as one big file in your computer. So we are going to create a virtual hard drive now. And there's all these different types of hard drives. We're going to do VDI, VirtualBox Disk Image. That's just the default. Now, a dynamically allocated hard drive, it explains all of this, but I'm going to read it anyway. A dynamically allocated hard drive starts as a very small file, and then as you add things into the virtual hard disk, then it takes up more space. So the file grows as you store more things on the virtual hard disk, and that's a pretty cool technology that I guess the people making VirtualBox, or maybe somebody else, has created. That it works with like different types of file systems. It works with Windows file systems. It works with Linux file systems. It's cool that they have developed that where even if you have formatted your virtual hard disk, it won't actually take up space on your physical hard disk unless you're actually using the virtual space too. Fixed size, it takes up the entire amount of space. So we're making a 25 gigabyte hard drive. And I don't want to take up 25 gigabytes of my hard disk just for that. So I'm going to choose dynamically allocated, and then the file size will grow as I store more things in the hard drive. Now the hard drive will always be limited to 25 gigabytes. I think it's kind of difficult to change your hard drive size later. So I would definitely go for a bigger hard drive size and dynamically allocated rather than a smaller one and fixed size, if that makes any sense. So we're going to choose the name Windows 8 Sandbox 25 gigabytes. We're going to make sure we're saving somewhere. Alright, our home folder is definitely on the large hard drive, not on the small hard drive, because I've got two in this computer. So yeah, you can slide this around just like before. Obviously you can't install Windows on a 4 megabyte hard drive, but 2 terabytes would be kind of extreme. So we're going to stick with the default 25 gigabytes for Windows 8. We'll click Create, and it has automatically been created for us. Here's where things get tricky. I think that they really need to rework that new virtual machine tutorial box thing that we just went through, because it does not give you everything you need to go through. Right now, if you click Start, yes, select Startup Disk. So this is new from last time I tried to do this. So as you can see, we just clicked Start, and it said Select Startup Disk. This is not what I normally do. It's prompting you to insert some sort of optical disk, or if you've got like a disk image, like I have one, I think, no I don't, but if you've got like a .iso file, you can mount that instead of using a physical disk, so that's nice. But yeah, as you can see, it's prompting you to insert something. We're not actually going to do that. So yeah, what I recommend you do, don't even click Start after you've created a new VirtualBox virtual machine. I know I just clicked Start, but don't do that. Instead, click Settings. And we're going to go through some settings. Now, I just like to click through these just to see what they are, but we're not changing everything. What you're going to do, you go to System, and you can change the amount of RAM that your computer has at any time. We're going to keep all of these options the same. Processor, this is a quad-core processor I'm using, as you can see here. These are now, I've got 8 virtual cores because of hyperthreading, which I enjoy. So since I've got so many cores to spare, I'm going to bring this processor count up to 2. That will give a virtual dual-core processor to the virtual machine rather than just a normal single-core processor. Now, this enable PAE/NX thing, I think that that's good for newer versions of Windows to have on. If you're, like, I think you have to enable something in your motherboard. I remember doing that to enable that at some point. But if it will let you check that box, then I would check it. I know this isn't very technical what I'm doing here, but this is for the beginner. Under Display, definitely check Enable 3D Acceleration and Enable 2D Video Acceleration. Now, 3D Acceleration, I think, just gives you a better virtual graphics card on any operating system. 2D Video Acceleration is only for Windows hosts, or I'm sorry, Windows guests. So if you're running Windows in your virtual machine, then you're going to want to check 2D Video Acceleration too. And I've got 2 gigabytes of VRAM in my video card, so I'm going to bring this up to the maximum amount, the video memory, up to the maximum amount. So yeah, bring up the video memory as high as you can, depending on, how much video memory is in your computer. We've got some other options. We don't need any of those. Storage. this is where it's important to go through and see we've got a SATA controller with our virtual hard disk mounted, and then we've got an IDE controller with our virtual CD drive mounted, but it's empty. So if you've got a .iso file that you downloaded off the internet, say a Linux distribution or something, you can choose a virtual CD/DVD disk file and just navigate to that file. But since I don't and I'm using a physical disk, we're going to choose host drive DVD writer. This pass-through box, you do not need to check that unless you're planning on like burning DVDs. If you're just reading DVDs to install something, you do not need to check pass-through. Everything else you can leave at the default settings. Yeah, pretty much everything else you can leave at the default settings. If you're planning on setting up a shared folder between your virtual machine and your physical machine, you can go to the shared folders dialog box and you can create a folder. Let's say I want to be able to exchange files between my virtual machine and my physical machine, because like I said, your physical machine cannot access your virtual machine's files by default. So what I can do is I can go and say, alright, my virtual machine can access my public folder, and it will be called public, and we will auto-mount it, and you don't want it read-only. So now I've got the public folder, and if I ever want to exchange files between my virtual machine and my physical machine, then I can just put things into my public folder in one of them and take them out in the other one. So we'll click OK. And now we will click Start in a second. At this point, you should put in your Windows disk. So I'm getting out my Windows disk right now. VirtualBox does support 64-bit disks, so I know some people don't like using 64-bit operating systems unless they have more than 3 gigabytes of RAM, but I am going to, or more than 3 gigs of RAM, used for the virtual machine, but I just like using 64-bit anyway, just for no particular reason. Just because maybe I want to up the RAM later, then I'll have the option to. So I just inserted my Windows DVD into my DVD player, or my DVD drive in my computer. As you can see, it just popped up. So we are going to ignore that pop-up. We're going to come over here and click Start. And a bunch of these pop-ups at the top of your windows are going to start up every time you start your computer. What I would do is click this button to the right of the X that says do not show this message again, because you'll get used to this pretty quickly. Now, there's two modes that the virtual machine can be in. It can be in mouse integration mode or in non-mouse integration mode. If your mouse is showing up like mine is right now, where I'm inside the virtual machine window, but it's still obviously the Linux mouse cursor, you have to click inside the virtual machine window. And now the virtual machine has captured that mouse, and yeah, the virtual machine can use the mouse right now, but obviously Linux cannot detect my mouse right now. And then what you do is you click right control. Click right control to bring your mouse cursor back out. So click inside the virtual machine window, right control to bring your cursor back out. In a minute, once Windows starts up, then it will probably start mouse integration, and I can show you what that does. Hoping this is going to actually load. Doesn't look like we're actually getting any activity here. I think we ran out of RAM, was what happened. Let me close Firefox here. Let's see. Yeah, we had some lag in our recording programs too. Alright, we should have enough now. Let me just make sure that all the recording software is still working. Alright, assuming that the recording software has been working thus far, I cleared up some RAM. I'm actually going to decrease the amount of RAM. So if you ever need to change the amount of RAM that you give your virtual machine, what you can do is click Settings, and then go down to System, and then we're going to bring this back down to, I guess, 2.5 gigabytes. So if I open up a calculator, and 1024 times 2.5 equals 2560. Alright, so 2560. Alright, so now we have 2.5 gigabytes of RAM given to this thing. So we'll click Start again. Hopefully we won't run out of RAM again. As you can see, I've got the RAM meter on here, and it kind of spiked there and then aborted. So let's see if we can run a little smoother this time. So these lights down here at the bottom of the virtual machine window indicate the activity of your stuff as it says. Like I said, I'm just reading everything out loud for your convenience. So if this little CD, the disk icon,
has a light by it, that means that it's reading your DVD drive, which, what do you know, my physical DVD drive also has its, light on. The hard drive activity light is not turned on, but you'll see it turn on later once we're installing Windows. And it is taking a little while for Windows to start, so that's kind of strange. As you can see, our RAM usage is going up, so I guess Windows is starting. There we go. Much, much smoother this time. So you can see, since we're not running out of RAM this time, see, the virtual machine reports that we are now using mouse pointer integration. So you can see now I'm not clicking within this box. Now I've got Linux cursor, hey, Windows cursor. So that's nice if you're switching between Windows and Linux. Like if you're using your virtual machine at the same time as you're using your physical machine, you can just easily, alright, I'm using the Linux application, and now I'm using the Windows machine again. So that's nice and easy to do. So I'm going to click Next, Install now. Now this is an upgrade disk, so, I mean, not sure if this is going to work. Alright, so it looks like that key is going to work. So, at this point, I'm going to continue walking you through this, or I'm going to go through all of this stuff. Obviously, you can see we've got our 25 gigabyte virtual hard drive that we created, and we will use that entire hard drive to install Windows 2, and it's going to go ahead and install Windows. So, it's going to go, I guess, moderate speed, because it's in a virtual machine. If you're using, let me tell you, it's a whole lot faster to use a virtual disk image than a physical DVD, because the virtual disk image is on your hard drive. It can read from that a lot faster than it can read from a physical DVD. So if you've got a virtual.iso disk image to use, or like a .img or anything, then yeah, definitely go for that rather than the physical DVD. But yeah, the rest of this is just the same as any Windows setup, and I'm not sure if I've done a Windows installation video on this channel before, or a Windows 8 installation video. I think I might have. But yeah, this is just the same as installing Windows on any computer, except you're doing it on the same computer that Linux is already installed on. So yeah, that was pretty much the point of the video. I'll go ahead and finish the Windows installation, and I'll show you once it's over. But yeah, at this point, that is how you create a Windows virtual machine under Linux, and right now we're installing Windows, and yeah, I'll show you once it has completed the installation. Alright, so it's a few hours later. Obviously it didn't take that long to install Windows, but yeah, I just walked away and did some other stuff while it was installing. And as you can see, we now have a Windows 8 environment, and this is actually like Windows 8. This is not an emulator, this is not like Wine, this is actually Windows. You can install anything that Windows 8 will work with in here, and yeah, obviously it won't be quite as quick as if you had it actually installed, because it is a virtual machine. And unfortunately, one of the places virtual machines are kind of lacking is graphic quality. So you're not going to be able to play games very well in virtual machines. I probably should mention that toward the beginning, huh? But, yeah, just for other purposes, such as, like, I don't know, just like if you're rooting an Android device or anything really that you need to do, that you can do on Windows but you can't quite do on Linux or Mac, virtual machine is a good way to go. Okay, so I just want to also point out, once again, right now, we've got mouse pointer integration. So as you can see, I'm quickly switching between Windows mouse and Linux mouse. And I move it back into Windows. Now I got the Windows mouse, and I move it back outside the box. Now I've got the Linux mouse. One reason why mouse pointer integration might not be the best thing is because you might have, say, let's say you've got no start button here because this isn't 8.1 yet. This is just Windows 8. Haven't gotten around to updating yet. So you've got the start button in the corner, and you get to the corner, and you need to go really slowly to get that start pop-up there to pop up. Because if you bring your mouse down to the bottom left corner fast, then, yeah, see what's going on is the Linux mouse is over here now, and it's gotten out of the Windows box. So it's no longer like, it can be difficult to use Windows 8.1's side features like the charms and stuff like that too. So if you go to, once again, click Machine, and then Disable Mouse Pointer Integration, or Disable Mouse Integration, then you've got your Linux mouse. Click inside your Windows box, you've got your Windows mouse. Now you can just, bam, bring it down to the bottom left and click. bring it up to the top left and down. Like, I don't have to worry about the mouse leaving the Windows box. It's locked inside the virtual machine. So yeah, at this point I'm going to go ahead and update everything. And yeah, that is how you make a Windows virtual machine under Linux once again. So just if there's anything ever, this is like an extra layer of security. If you're trying to migrate to Linux from Windows in your day-to-day life, then this is just one extra layer of protection just in case there is anything you need Windows for. If you have any questions about this process, feel free to go to nerdonthestreet.com and leave us a forum post about it. And then, of course, there's always the comment section down below. But for now, that was all I wanted to show you. I'm Jacob Kaufman. I'm Nerd on the Street, and I will see you guys later. See ya.